Bitcoin is the world's first digital gold on the world's first global digital monetary network. It's a paradigm shift, the first idea in 5,000 years. It's compressed air. A perfected safe haven asset, of which the best in the world is Bitcoin. So convert your family treasury to Bitcoin, convert your personal treasury to Bitcoin, convert your company to Bitcoin. If you have an endowment, convert that to Bitcoin. If you run a city, convert that to Bitcoin. And in terms of where it can go, I mean, I look at the value of gold, about $10 trillion of gold, and I don't see any reason why it doesn't flip that. And I look at 100 trillion in bonds, and I look at at the size of the global equity market, and I think 10, 20, 30% of that or more just wants to be in a store of value as a monetary index or just a property. So I think a portion of bonds, a portion of real estate, most of monetary gold. I mean, a decent portion of gold, a decent portion of ETFs. When people are putting money in an ETF like the S&P index, they're kind of just trying to save their money.
Yeah, definitely.
Like if they really wanted to bet on Apple, they buy Apple stock. If they wanted to bet only on big tech, they buy big tech FANG or they buy NASDAQ. But when they're buying the S&P 500, they're just buying a diversified portfolio of equity because they don't want to keep their money in a savings account yielding 0% interest. And they know that bonds you're taking the risk of losing all your money, but you're only getting paid 1 or 2 or 3% interest or something. So as Bitcoin grows, I think it attracts that capital. And so why shouldn't it go to 10 trillion, then 20 trillion, then 40 trillion, then 80 trillion? And, so do I see a path to $1 million a coin? Sure, I do, right? When it gets to $1 million a coin, if you call me and ask me, what are you going to do? I'm going to wait for it to go to 2 million a coin, right?
Right.
When it gets to 2 million a coin, and you ask me, what am I going to do? I'm going to say, I think I'll just hang out here because it's still digital property. And if it got to that point, it must be wired into 100,000 applications and billions of people's lives. So I think it's just a patient waiting game. I didn't have any problem or any urgent catalyst that would cause me to spend 40 hours studying Bitcoin before March of 2020. I wouldn't look at 100,000 little minute assets. I would look at $1 trillion blocks. So there's $1 trillion worth of Bitcoin. It's up 582% over a year and 200% on average. Compound annual growth rate, 200% for a decade. Those are two numbers that are valuable. There's 10 trillion in gold. It's up 2% this year and 2% on average every year for a decade. Just stop right there. That's a big insight. You can measure 1 million statistics of Bitcoin and gold, every second. They don't matter. What matters is one thing is appreciating at 2% a year and the other's appreciating at 200% a year. Now, what about 6,500 other cryptocurrencies? Irrelevant. S&P is the value index. It's the cost of capital. Gold is breaking down and being destroyed because it's an antiquated elitist store of value. It's a disaster. Don't buy gold, sell your gold. Bitcoin is the world's first digital gold on the world's first global digital monetary network. It's a paradigm shift, the first idea in 5,000 years. It's compressed air. It's electricity. It's hygienic running water. It's something new and different. If you don't understand it, then you should go and study it. You should study it because it is, in essence, strong money on a crypto network. And there's no reason it can't flip gold and go to 10 trillion and then replace most debt as a store of value and go to 100 trillion. A country can, or a city can buy Bitcoin as a reserve asset. And then a city can't issue currency, but they can issue debt. The city of New York could buy $1 billion of Bitcoin and they could issue $1 billion worth of debt backed by the Bitcoin. A country, Turkey could buy $10 billion of Bitcoin, issue the lira. They can also issue debt backed by the Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin becomes a reserve asset, just like you can make it. MicroStrategy made it our reserve asset, and our stock is backed by Bitcoin, and our stock went from $120 a share to $600 a share. So you could make it the reserve asset in El Salvador and use the dollar that El Salvadorians have, or they could issue another currency, and then the currency strengthens. So I think what you have is a currency the government controls. It's like every company has a stock, right? What's the currency of a company? Stock. So if a company adopts Bitcoin as its reserve asset, then the stock starts to be backed by the Bitcoin. So the best way to think about this transition is companies start to buy Bitcoin as their reserve asset, and then they have stocks that trade as derivatives of the Bitcoin. And then small countries buy Bitcoin, and then they have a currency backed as a derivative of the Bitcoin, and then larger countries. And over time, you would just think that Bitcoin becomes a larger and larger asset class. It goes from $1 trillion to 10 trillion to 100 trillion to 200 trillion. Are companies going to always have stocks? Sure. Just because I bought Bitcoin doesn't mean I gave up the right to issue stock or to buy my stock back or to do what I want with my stock. There's a digital transformation of balance sheets, and the single biggest truth in the world is that 7.8 billion people are using toxic currency to store their value. And what they need to do is convert their treasuries from a toxic currency, which is losing 15% or more of its economic energy every year, to a perfected safe haven asset, of which the best in the world is Bitcoin. So convert your family treasury to Bitcoin, convert your personal treasury to Bitcoin, convert your company to Bitcoin. If you have an endowment, convert that to Bitcoin. If you run a city, convert that to Bitcoin. It's a very simple idea, which is you have the strongest asset in the world. You can't make any more of it. One day, billions of people will want to own it. They've all got to squeeze through this one nozzle. Every day, you can buy $1 billion, $2 billion of it. It's a bank in cyberspace. If you're holding $1 million in cash, you're losing 150,000 a year, or you lost 250,000 this year in purchasing power. It's just melting away. And so everybody on earth needs to figure out, how do I convert or digitally transform my balance sheet from something which is debasing to something which is accreting? And once you understand that idea, then it becomes pretty clear what else you want to do with your life, because there's a million other things that follow from it, that'll keep you busy once you get that big idea.